Alrighty, so more chaos in the garage. So I got this whole system off.
It is definitely not intimidating to look at all.
There's literally no more bike, there's just parts in a garage.
We got everything working, so we're going to start taking apart the back of the bike now and do all the rear bearings. These bolts were like finger tight, so getting them out was super easy, but pretty scary that I've been test driving this thing up and down the road. Literally, they could have wobbled right out any second. So here we have all the new bearings. The camera stand doesn't go any higher, so this is as good as it's gonna get. Here we've got the rear linkage of the bike. Doesn't seem too terrible, but there was a lot of play in these bearings. Now the only thing of concern here is these little guys. I didn't see where they came from. I think they were just washers for these bearings. It was something like that. That's the kind of situation that was going on here. Yeah, I just didn't see where they came from. Honestly, they just kind of fell off. I'll either look up a parts diagram for this or YouTube will tell me. Now, time to get these things cleaned and then put some new bearings in here. So, I got the little bearings out of this thing. Which, if you've ever taken apart this shock linkage on your bike before, you know this is the harder one. Which I just figured out. I don't have any of the right tools, so I just did the same thing I did with the wheel bearings. And I used the end of a breaker bar to knock it out. Key to doing this is use a heat gun. It makes it a lot easier. I was hammering and hammering away before I picked up the heat gun and nothing. As soon as I used the heat gun, it came out quickly. So that is definitely advised. This one I should be able to press out the bearings, which will be a lot easier. I got 2 of the bearings out, and the reason I haven't got the other 2 out is because when Husqvarna was designing this, they thought it would be a brilliant idea to go against what everyone else was doing and just put races in the middle. So I started trying to press these bearings out, not knowing that there were those races in the middle, because my service manual is in like Spanish or something. They just weren't coming out, so I decided I would just do what I did just now and hit them with a hammer. And I heard that familiar metal on metal sound where nothing is really budging, so I did the same thing I did just now with sitting on the floor and hitting it with a breaker bar. So it's been about 30 seconds since I recorded the last clip and I got the 2 out. Turns out that knocking bearings out of things is a learnable skill and you get better at it. Alright, now I'm going to just clean everything up and they are looking pretty brand new. I pressed this one bearing out just because I wanted to see what it was like to press out a bearing. And also because I didn't want to damage that one because I got to put it back in. It was so much easier pressing the bearings than hammering them. Okay, so I managed to get all the new bearings in. Not this one. This one is an old bearing. I pressed it out and then I looked at the new one and it looks nothing like this. I mean, I'm sure it'll work, but this is what the new bearing looks like. Just don't think that's going to work so well. I mean, it's literally just 2 pieces of metal. There's no bearing inside. I trust this a little bit more and it doesn't seem too worn out, so also it's just better built. Honestly, the new ones are made out of plastic and these ones are all metal. Also, these ones have a lot more rolling pins inside. Here we got the bearings already in that I pressed last night, and then the pivots here laid out in order. My new bearing parts. Ooh, tub of grease. So I'm just going to grease these up and then I'm going to not assemble it onto the bike just yet. I'm gonna put it in a plastic packet over there and label it, because what I want to do with the bike is actually send it off to have the chassis resprayed. Alright, so I'm gonna get to this and then I'll show you guys when I'm done. Okay, so here is one reassembled linkage, which is gonna go straight in a plastic packet. Now, it's not too hard to do this, but it does create quite a lot of mess. So, keep some paper towel handy. But this is fairly neat, and I got quite a bit of grease in there. It's packed nicely. I've now started to put some parts into that box over there. Just put them in plastic packets and keep them to store everything. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the radiator. I'm going to take those off, plug up all the holes in the engine with some paper, take the exhaust off, and that should be pretty much everything on here. Then I'll take the wiring harness off. Then all that needs to be done is the wheels and additional little things like brakes and guards. There we go. Radiator's drained. That's disgusting. Now I'm just going to water the bike a little bit. It's obviously quite thirsty. It's coming out this side, but is it coming out the other side? You know, not that much radiator fluid came out of here. But I'm not a mechanic, so I don't know what I'm talking about. What happens if... Where does it go when I put it in here? Hey, look at that. I'm flushing the engine bit.
Okay, so I got the exhaust pipe off. Put some paper in here just to stop dirt going in my exhaust. Now what I'm doing is I'm just labeling off the wires on the harness. So you can see here, this is the stator.
So this is how you meant to learn to wheelie, right? Balance wheelie. I'm gonna leave that before I break the whole thing.
So I got this whole system off.
And it is definitely not intimidating to look at all. I suppose this is a relatively small wiring harness in comparison.
This rear axle nut is meant to be torqued to 140 Newton meters. I came here expecting a fight, and all it took was like that. So the people who previously worked on this bike literally tightened nothing. So I've been test driving it around, and this is why I didn't do anything crazy. Half the fucking bolts are loose. There's actually no way I can put this thing back together worse than how I took it apart. Okay. That was easy to get off, considering I didn't have to fight with any torque. Let me just... Oh, shit. Now I got grease on my fingers. Put that aside. What else came off here? The whole braking system here, which is like a whole floating... Lots of carbon buildup and lots of corrosion. Genuine spare parts made for Husqvarna. I think it is meant to be a floating disc. It's a lot of corrosion. It still looks mechanically sound. Luckily, I have a bearing kit. It's gonna roll real smooth. So now the swing arm is gonna come off in like 2 steps. So I think I'll do that today, and then I'll call it. Right, so it looks like they did know how to use a torque wrench when they installed this one. Okay, so I think I'm gonna call it a day here. Got the wheel off, got the rear swing arm off, and everything else that came with it. So the braking system as well is lying over here. All the pivots, the chain guide, that chain guide, screws, everything. Out here, which I'm going to bring inside now, I have got my radiators, my exhaust, and some radiator hosing. Spray some more soap on there, let it soak overnight. And in here, we've got the other parts I took off. I don't know if I showed you guys.
Okay, so now we have to remove the front triple clamps and forks so we can isolate the frame. And I don't really want to have to undo any of the lines I did last time. I'm going to take off the brake caliper when I take off the handlebars, and then I'm going to take off the slave cylinder because it's actually an isolated unit, so you can just pull the slave cylinder off without taking any of it apart. And then I have a spare slave cylinder. I'm just going to pop that in there, and then I'm not sure if there's oil behind. So if there is oil, then that'll prevent it from coming out the motorcycle when I fiddle the engine around, because that would be quite bad if I tipped it over and then all the oil just drained out of that little place.
Alrighty, so more chaos in the garage. We got the trouble clamps off. Here's the handlebars. Just took everything off as a unit, so I don't have to worry about anything there. Just plugs back onto the bike when it's done. Also, all these parts got cleaned. Not perfectly, but I just used a bucket of soap. There's both the wheels and the forks, and here is what we have left. It's kind of crazy, I deleted it from existence. I just got scrap metal. Yeah, but that's to switch it on. Now you have to press it again.
Ah, it's recording. Okay.
Final bolt on my engine. Now I should be able to just rotate it 90 degrees like that, and then pull it out backwards. I feel like it's going to come out forwards a lot easier. Wow, that was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. There's literally no more bike, there's just parts in a garage. Mustn't lose track of all the parts. I got parts there, got parts there, got parts there, and there. It's like just... I need like a big table where I can put all of them because I'm going to lose screws and shit. As you can see on the floor right here, I've got the frame broken down to pieces. It's all nicely cleaned up. I'm going to pop it in the car, and then we're going to go and drop it off to get powder coated. Okay, so I just dropped the parts off to be powder coated at Cape Powder Coatings. Yeah, they showed me they tape off all the areas for clearance and make sure all the bolt holes stay unpowder coated. Said about 6 to 7 working days for sandblasting and powder coating. Should be getting it back next week Monday. If it goes really fast, maybe even this week Friday, but that could be a bit optimistic.
So I've got lots of other stuff on the bike still to do before that point. So I'll get to all of that. Oh, sort out that wiring harness. That's going to be a pain. I gotta get to driving.